Welcome to Infidelity Truths. Before we dive into today's gripping story, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more thrilling stories just for you. Let's begin.
I never thought I'd be the kind of person to betray someone who loved me with their whole heart. But I did. And the worst part? I told myself it was just a fleeting lapse, something I could sweep under the rug and move on from. But guilt doesn't work that way. It clings to you, seeps into your bones, and taints every moment of happiness you try to hold on to. I was 28 when it happened. My partner, Nora, and I had been together for 4 years. She was warm, dependable, the kind of person who made you feel like you could weather any storm as long as she was by your side. We had a cozy apartment filled with plants she'd lovingly tended, and our weekends were spent hiking or cooking elaborate dinners together. It was the kind of life I'd always dreamed of, steady, grounded, full of quiet love. But maybe that steadiness made me restless in a way I didn't understand until it was too late. It started at a friend's art gallery opening. I worked as a freelance graphic designer, and the event was buzzing with creative types, wine flowing, and conversations sparking. That's where I met Julian. He was a photographer, all sharp edges and charisma, with a laugh that cut through the room. We got to talking about art, then life, then nothing in particular, but the way he looked at me made my pulse race. I told myself it was harmless, a little flirtation, nothing more. I loved Nora. I knew where my heart belonged. But then came the after-party. A small group of us ended up at a dimly lit bar, and Julian and I kept talking, our chairs inching closer as the night wore on. By the time the others left, it was just us, sharing a bottle of red wine and stories about our childhoods. I don't know how it happened. Maybe it was the alcohol, maybe it was the way he saw me, like I was someone new and thrilling. When he suggested we take a walk to clear our heads, I agreed. The city was quiet, the streets slick with rain. We stopped under a street lamp, and he looked at me with an intensity that made my stomach twist. "You're different," he said, his voice low. And then he kissed me. I could have pulled away. I should have. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned into it, letting the moment swallow me whole. We ended up in his nearby studio, a blur of hands and heat and bad decisions. When it was over, I sat on the edge of his couch, my clothes crumpled, my heart hammering with the weight of what I'd done. Julian acted like it was no big deal. "We're just living in the moment," he said with a shrug, like it was something we could both forget. But I couldn't. I drove home at 3 a.m., the city lights blurring through my tears. Nora was asleep when I crept into our apartment, her soft breathing filling the silence. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching her, and the guilt hit me like a tidal wave. I'd broken something sacred, something I could never take back. The next morning, I woke up to Nora making coffee, humming softly. She smiled at me, completely unaware, and asked how the gallery opening was. I mumbled something vague and forced a smile, but inside, I was unraveling. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a mistake I could bury. But guilt doesn't stay buried. It lingered in the way I flinched when Nora hugged me, in the way I avoided her gaze, terrified she'd see the truth in my eyes. Every "I love you" felt like a lie, and every touch felt like a betrayal. Weeks turned into months, and I tried to move on. I cut contact with Julian, ignored his texts, and threw myself into my work. But the guilt followed me everywhere. It was there in the quiet moments, when Nora and I watched movies curled up on the couch. It was there when she planned a surprise weekend getaway for our anniversary, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I'd look at her, so full of love and trust, and feel like a fraud. One night, as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset, Nora reached for my hand. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft with concern. "You seemed distant." My heart pounded, and for a moment, I almost told her everything. But the thought of her face crumpling, of her trust shattering, stopped me. "Just work stress," I lied, squeezing her hand. She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. Our anniversary came a few months later. Nora had planned a quiet dinner at our favorite restaurant, the one where we'd had our first date. As we sat across from each other, candlelight flickering between us, she talked about our future, trips we'd take, a house we might buy someday. Her words were full of hope, but all I could think about was the secret I was carrying. I didn't deserve her dreams. I didn't deserve her. A year later, Nora proposed. It was a crisp autumn evening, and we were hiking in the mountains, the leaves ablaze of red and gold. At the top of the trail, she dropped to one knee and pulled out a ring, her eyes shining with love. "I want to spend my life with you," she said. My throat tightened, and the guilt roared in my chest. I said yes, because how could I not? But as we embraced, the weight of my secret felt heavier than ever. We got married in a small ceremony, surrounded by friends and family who called us meant to be. I smiled for the photos, danced with Nora under string lights, and tried to believe I could be the partner she deserved. But the guilt never left. It's there every morning when I wake up beside her, every time she kisses me, every time she says she's grateful for me. I've never repeated the mistake, but that one night with Julian is a shadow that never fades. I've thought about confessing 1,000 times. I've imagined the words, the fallout, the way it would break Nora's heart. I've wondered if telling her would free me from this suffocating guilt, or if it would only hurt her more. People say honesty is the answer, but what if the truth destroys the person you love most? So I stay silent, carrying the weight of a single choice that changed me forever. I tell myself it's to protect her, but deep down, I know it's also because I'm too afraid to face what I've done. Some mistakes you can leave behind. Others carve themselves into your soul. Do you think I should confess, or is silence the only way to keep what we have?